The social scoring credit system is here. Why does this matter and what is it even about? You need to know that people in powerful places over the monetary markets who are over our culture want to place a rating and scoring system upon individuals and give them like a social credit score, kind of like China is doing. Now you think, what does that matter? Why? Who cares if they keep track of every dollar that I spend or where I spend it? I can even see Christians going, hey, since I'm not doing anything illegal, I'm not doing anything legal with my funds, I'm not doing anything bad, what do they care where I spend my money, and why should I even be afraid? Well, if you understand anything about how this credit system will work or how it can be used as leverage against large entities, it will begin to terrify you. So let's say, for instance, you are doing all of your normal shopping and your normal habit patterns, and it's just recording a normal human being early in the credit scoring process. But let's say Disney comes out with a blatantly homosexual kids cartoon. They're past kissing now in the scenes. They actually want to go full-on X-rated cartoon. And as a Christian, you're shocked and you go, I'm pulling my funding from Disney. Like, I'm not watching any more Disney kids movies. And let's say you have been watching a kids movie once a week through Disney, and now the credit system is reporting that you are no longer sending any money to Disney. You might get labeled a religious radical in the system. Like, hey, take note, this person is a religious radical. Or let's say you actually get online and you buy a creation kids book. You know, you're just typing in and you're trying to make sure your kid is well educated in Christianity. And so you look up a creation kids book because, you know, they're not teaching this at the school systems. And can you imagine if the rating goes into the databases that you are now a science denier? You remember, we're not creating these categories. Other people are creating those categories. But can you imagine just by looking up a bit of creation material that you would get labeled as a science denier? You're like, I love science. I believe in science, but science denier. What if where you lived that the markets around you were atrocious, and the grocery stores around you were always in neglect and they weren't well stocked? And so instead of going to the closest two grocery stores near you, you drove to the third grocery store out of freedom of choice. And can you imagine being mislabeled? This person is a racist, because these stores are obviously ethnically diverse. And since this person is driving past those stores to shop in an area that is more likened to their race profiling, then they are obviously racist. Do not think that data could not be miscalculated as such. Or can you imagine entering in and buying a football game or watching a boxing match and all of a sudden being labeled as violent? That you are a violent extremist or you have tendencies towards being aggressive. There is all sorts of mislabeling that those that are just crunching data numbers, who just want to control the flow of money, how they could mislabel you in the future. Now, you might think, who cares about all this data labeling and what does it really matter? Well, you obviously know there is a realm of politics, and the politicians some of them are absolutely at war with each other. You can tell this in their heated discussions and in their name calling and in their aggression towards each other. There are minimum of two different opposing viewpoints on some topics, and the the hatred and rivalry there is intense. And so you need to understand there is political warfare. Now, there's some that think that this is all staged and whatnot, but without getting into a conspiracy backdrop, if you just think that there are two ideologies that are warring with each other, what is the way in politics to completely undermine the other team? And that would be to attack their funding sources. So, for instance, one of the quickest ways to undermine the funding sources of someone would be to leverage a business against them. And so if you knew that all of someone's constituents were coming through this type of company, then you could actually begin to give that company a lesser credit score or higher interest rates or shorter a lengthened time in processing transactions. You could begin to put them on the back burner and slowly hurt that business, and then possibly leverage that business against even supporting that candidate. The business would be like, why is everybody picking on me? And like, well, you supported this candidate. And like, well, I'd rather have my funding, so would you leave us alone? Yeah, well, hey, we'll send money your direction. If you don't think there are people in politics at war with each other, then you're not really paying attention. Well, also, if you don't think that anybody's trying to control money flow, then maybe you haven't understood how many billions of dollars recently were given to the Ukraine, and then the Ukraine put money in FTX or into crypto, and then into the FTX funds. Out of the FTX funds came money back to the same political parties that helped donate all of this money overseas to begin with. If you don't think people are trying to create and control money flow, then maybe you're not paying attention. Also, you need to understand they're not just trying to control vast amounts of money, like towards businesses or for businesses, but they would like to control individuals as well. If they're recording every transaction that you're making, they could control your ability to have credit or to have a good interest rate, or if you could even use your money or not. And you might think, well, nobody would ever really do that. Like, nobody would maybe hold my money hostage or against me. Do you understand that in China currently they are putting expiration dates into the digital money that is issued to their people? Think about this. What if you were given a dollar bill that had an expiration date upon it? Good until the end of 2023. Oh, I have a year to use this. At first, it might not seem that big of a deal, but then when you think about how am I ever supposed to store up, like, oh, there is no storing up, because storing up would be an increase in power or decision making, and that's not for you little people. That's only for us higher ups. So also with an expiration date, the forcing of it into culture for things that it might not even need to be for, it's just unstable. It is a very, you know where the control of the country seems to lie. Well, the reason I bring all this up is because there are many people that are into some confusion. Like, I don't understand those that don't read the scriptures and see this clearly, but there's some that say the mark of the beast has already happened. Well, there was something mark of the beast-like, sure, that happened right there in the first century, sure. But you cannot look at the pages of Scripture and say all of that was fulfilled. It was all come to pass. No. And there's some that are like, well, when you read the Bible, it's kind of figurative. There's not really a mark of the beast where you can't buy or sell. And there's some people that, don't even want to believe that the mark of the beast is real or that the Bible is real. But if you'll look, the protocol of digital money is starting to look a lot like the mark of the beast. If the government can hand you funds that it can tell you how to use or how not to use, then it has taken the freedom out of your hands and they have complete control. And this is exactly what we find with the mark of the beast. You, the individual, are not allowed to buy or sell unless you accept the mark of the beast. And once you have his permission and once you have his blessing, then you can buy and sell. You might not be in agreement with the mark of the beast, but the protocol is here. It is present and it is escalating and moving along quickly. You probably already know about some of these things, but ask yourself the question, what are you going to do? Considering that digital money is already on the ledger books, it is already there is the trial run that is in place. The time is upon you. So what can you do? Number one, you need to fight this politically. You need to find out who is backing what and look at the motives, look deeply on this, because people left and right are warning about this, but we need to stand up while we can politically, because if we turn this kind of power over where they can control the businesses, that if they control me, that's one thing. But I kind of trust that we still have some power left because of these businesses that are in place. But if someone has control over every dollar and every transaction, they'll control business and individuals alike, and there's nothing we can do. Once we get to that point, it is too late. So we need to fight this politically. Second, we need to spread this information. This needs to be in our conversations. We need to quit talking about things like football and what we ate for dinner and begin to discuss these deeper measures, like what are we going to do about social score, credit rating systems? How are we going to stop this? How can we keep this from ever being an issue during our lifetime? And since it is pushing along quickly, the third thing I would say is you need to store up what you can. I'm not telling you to be a hoarder or an all-out apocalypse prepper, but the protocol, again, for the mark of the beast arriving is very clear. It is very noticeable that someone that wants to control things is setting up a system to do so. And if you're not allowed to buy or sell, then you need to get the things that you absolutely need presently and currently, as much as you possibly could, without obviously going frantic. On top of this, we need to learn skills. I would suggest that you begin to learn hands-on skills of how to build things or how to fix things, and especially how to garden and plant. Even if you can't buy or sell things, if you can get out in your yard and plant food in the ground, then you still can live and survive. And on top of that, I would say we need to build communities. We need to build relationships with those around us who might have the resources that we need if we're not allowed to buy or sell, or have the relationships in place of those that will help us to attain the skills that we need or that we can share. And we need to be very involved in kingdom building, leading people to Jesus Christ and saying, hey, you know that the mark of the beast has been threatened. This is real. It's looming. What are you going to do when these final days come? And would you like to join our communities? Would you like to band with us against this horrible overreach and abuse of power? The social credit scoring system is upon us, and it's time we take note of it.